안녕하세요, 교수님.
네.
오늘 이렇게 와주셔서 정말 감사합니다.
네.
오늘 우리는 짧은 인터뷰를 촬영하고 있습니다.
네.
그래서 자신에 대해 소개해 주세요.
네. 영어로 얘기할게요.
네.
네. My name is Kwon Chung, and I have been engaged in climate business, not business but negotiation at the UN from 91 until 2016 as a Korean diplomat as well as a UN director at UN ESCAP. So I have been engaged in UN climate work almost 20 years. And now what I'm doing after my retirement, I retired in 2016, and then I have been promoting the idea of green growth, green economic growth. And this is about how to turn climate as an opportunity for economic growth. Because even now, many political leaders and even some business still believe climate is very bad for economy and business. But I was trying to argue that climate can be an opportunity, not just a burden. This is what I was trying to change the perception, and I was trying to introduce new paradigm. I branded it as a green growth, green economic growth. I started in 2005, and I published a report, Low Carbon Green Growth Roadmap, and but unfortunately, still, the fixed perception that climate is a burden and cost for the economy is still very strong, and the perception did not change much. So it is a little unfortunate, but we still have a lot more to do. So now, in order to introduce myself, I originally was a Korean diplomat, and I was representing Korean government in UN climate negotiations. But I felt deeply frustrated because all diplomats from all the governments of the United Nations, they are all engaging in the negotiation under the perception that climate mitigation is bad for the economy. So all the diplomats are just arguing each other that I should minimize my burden and maximize the other people's burden. This is why the diplomats are struggling and fighting each other. But I was deeply frustrated about it. This is why I moved and joined the UN Secretariat, because I'm more interested in to work for some contribution to stop climate change, not just representing one country and one government, but rather I want to represent the interest of the earth and for the future generation. So I was trying to think what has to be done to stop the climate change. This is why I was also involved in IPCC report. IPCC is an Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I once joined the exercise of IPCC to produce a special report on technology transfer. And I was invited to be a lead author of one of the chapter. And later, it was in 2000. But later, 2007, IPCC got the Nobel Peace Prize because of their work for climate change issues. Then IPCC decided to give a personal copy of a Nobel Peace Prize given to IPCC to the lead authors of the IPCC report. This is how I got one personal copy of the Nobel Peace Prize. So I feel very honored to receive it. And it makes me a lot of more sense of mission to contribute for the climate action. So I'm still continue to promote green growth idea. But nowadays, I'm also continuing to work with the universities, teaching students, and I keep on coming up with the new ideas how to stop climate change.
Thank you. And I have a few questions. And the first question is about personal responsibility in green economy. What can you say in a few words?
Okay. Yeah. From some time ago, the idea of a green economy, I think it started in 2009 by the United Nations Environment Program. UNEP produced a report titled Green Economy. I think it was in 2008, something like that. Then since then, the green economy has been very popular. But many people also say that what we mean by green economy and how can make our economy grow green. Is it possible or not possible? There are a lot of questions and skepticism. Still, the definition, many people are confused. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, confusion is there. But for my idea of a green economy is growing economy while reducing CO2 emission. Very simple. If we can grow our economy while we can reduce our CO2 emission, it is green economy. But depending on the level of a development, like a developed country or developing country or low developing country, the green economy will mean different things. It cannot be the same thing for the different level of development countries. So I think in promoting green economy, in the beginning, many people thought government should play the leading role, and the business has to play the leading role in promoting green economy. That has been the basic idea. But after more than how many years? More than 16, 18 years later, now I realize that this kind of top-down by the government and by the business to change the economy from brown to green doesn't work very well. It doesn't work very well. Because when government try to pull, but if the consumer and the people do not support and join, it is very difficult. Any government cannot make the economy green. Think about protest, demonstration in Paris, even in the developed country like France. When the gas price goes up, energy price goes up, people went on for strike and demonstration in protest for the economic burden. Even in France. Then, so is a government, the top-down approach is not enough. So nowadays days, I am presenting the idea that we, everybody, all consumers, has to make their own personally determined contribution, not just NDC, nationally determined contribution. Paris Climate Agreement is based on NDC. So each government made a pledge. For example, Korea said we will reduce 40% of CO2 by 2030. But so far, Korean CO2 emission doesn't show any sign of going down. Very small fraction. Not only Korea. Look at the other countries. It doesn't show much progress. So the top-down by NDC. And the last year in Dubai at COP28, they reviewed, evaluated what is the progress. Then the conclusion, NDC by all the government is not making progress. The governments are falling behind their pledge and their commitment. So meaning that we are failing to make our commitment, to meet our commitment. So I thought we have to have not only top-down, but we have to have a bottom-up as well. Bottom-up means participation by the consumers and the individuals. If the individuals don't make personally determined contributions, then NDC will not be possible. Without PDC, NDC will not be possible. So NDC and PDC has to go hand in hand together. And the green economy, if the consumers do not join and choose carbon-free product, carbon-free energy, then green economy will not be possible. Because only government imposition, government order and demand, it will backfire. Politicians are afraid that if people get angry about it, they lose the election. So they lose their job. Then why would any politician risk losing their job? They just wanted to pleasing the people and getting the vote. So this is what is happening right now. So I'm now proposing the idea of PDC, personally determined the contribution. So each one of us, consumers, we cannot be just outsider and just bystander and only accusing, finger pointing government and the business. Just blame them. It doesn't make any change. We should not blame government or business. We should blame ourselves. We should blame ourselves because I didn't pay the price of green transition, energy transition. I didn't pay for it. So I should blame myself. Why you're blaming government and the business? In Korea, very interesting, young student sue Korean government to the Constitutional Court for failing to introduce strong action to reduce CO2 emission, saying that the Korean government did not respect the right of young generation for their future. But I don't agree with them. Why? Why? Because they sue not the government. They sue themselves. Because they were grown up with a cheap energy. Their parents have provided everything for their childhood and they enjoyed cheap energy until they grow up. So they have grown up with a cheap carbon energy. And now they are accusing government for that. But they didn't pay the price of carbon. They should sue themselves. And I'm asking them, you should be ready to pay your own future carbon price, not just accusing government. So I am now proposing Me First campaign. I should be the first to share the responsibility, not asking government or business share the responsibility on behalf of myself. It's not possible. Nobody will pay for you, your future, government or the business. No, that's not possible. We, all of us, has to pay for our own future. I call it PDC, Personally Determined Contribution, and the Me First campaign. Then we can promote the green economy.
Okay. And the next questions, what is the definition of GDP and what can you tell about the consumption?
Okay. Your question is about GDP and actually it is CDP?
GDP.
GDP.
Yeah.
Yeah, GDP is gross domestic product. So we are UN methodology of calculating CO2 emission is based on GDP. So each country calculating how much CO2 emission they produce, they calculate based on GDP. But this GDP does not include import from outside. This is only the production, but it doesn't include the consumption. So for example, many European countries, they are importing a lot of manufactured goods from developing countries like China and Korea. Manufactured goods, energy intensive products, car, automobile, steel, aluminum, all the things are produced in China, in many developing countries, and then imported. But in this import, there's a lot of CO2 which is embedded in this import. But even though many European countries are importing this carbon intensive product, but their CO2 emission is calculated only for their production in their country, domestic consumption, domestic production. So, for example, in the case of United Kingdom, the ratio of CO2 emission from their domestic production is 45, while the CO2 emission embedded in the import is 55. So, in other words, UK people, the British, is consuming about a lot more carbon emission from outside of the world rather than inside of the United Kingdom. But the problem is UK reporting only 45 to the United Nations as their national emission, not 100, because it is Chinese emission, Korean emission, not UK's emission, because we are counting from GDP. So now I'm proposing that we have to calculate the CO2 emission, not only production, but we have to add consumption by the import. That it will give whole picture of who is really responsible. So otherwise, we cannot reduce global emission. If we are only focusing on production, it is simply pushing the carbon from one place, from Europe to China. It's a carbon leakage. But globally, it doesn't reduce. But for global reduction, consumption has to be reduced. If the consumption remains same, then there's no way we can reduce the global net reduction. So I'm proposing nowadays to count the CO2 emission for not only based on production, but also based on the production. So this is a very important point for global net reduction.
Okay, thank you. Korea is not only a country that produces products, they are also changing the world. Tell us, please, about the concept of green growth and what can be done in Kazakhstan. I mean, maybe your recommendations to Kazakhstan.
Okay. I appreciate your comment, the positive comment about Korea, but actually these days Korean wave, Korean drama and Korean pop idols and having some quite interesting impact around the world. I think it is a bit a positive impact. That's good. And from my side, I personally have been trying to promote the ideas like green growth and personally determine the contribution and me first. These are the kind of new ideas that to make a real contribution and real solution for climate issues. So these are the kind of concept I'm promoting. But regarding your second question about my recommendation for Kazakhstan, what I think is, I think the branding strategy will be very important for Kazakhstan. What I mean by the branding is, nowadays, what is very critical for green economy is that we have to differentiate the price between brown product and the green product. Even green energy and the brown energy, there has to be a different price. Now all the problem is happening because of we don't differentiate the price. Whether it's a carbon-free energy or carbon energy, the prices are same, all mixed up and sold at the one price. So if there are some consumers like me and the young generation, they want to choose green and clean green energy, but they cannot choose because there's no choice. It's only one price, fixed. So now the very important critical strategy is to provide the choices to choose for the consumers. Because I believe there are many young generation who are willing to choose carbon-free green product, even paying higher price, because they are worried about their future. Patagonia, the fashion brand, is a very interesting example. Patagonia is made from fabric from the recycled plastic. I don't think the material is very fantastic, but still they put higher price. And you might wonder who will pay higher price for recycled plastic. But they are making good business. Why? There are many young generation who wants to choose green product they want to use for their future. So they are willing to pay higher price for it. So this is a proof that there are increasing number of young generation. It's a kind of a personally determined contribution. And the be first concept. They're already doing it. So in order to take advantage of this kind of a new mindset change of a young generation, young consumers, I think the very critical point is giving a price option. So carbon-free product should have a different price. And the carbon product should have a different price. Normally, the carbon-free product should have a higher price because green energy is more expensive. So, but consumers will be willing to choose even paying higher price for it. So we have to encourage Be First campaign mindset change for the young generation to choose and ready to pay higher price for it because they have to pay for it. Who will pay for it? Government? Business? It's a nonsense. If we don't pay for it, who will pay for it? So the young generation has to learn about it through the education. And so my recommendation is there has to be a kind of branding. Even for meat, you can differentiate the grass-fed meat and the regular meat. Grass-fed meat is very high quality omega-3 and is good for health. But the grain-fed meat is omega-6 high, very bad for your cholesterol, your heart, blood pressure. So there has to be a different price. But in Kazakhstan, you have a huge land space. And your cow and cattle, naturally, they are able to grow by eating grass. And you have to brand it as a grass-fed meat. And you can sell it at a very higher price. In the developed market, US, Australia, and Europe, grass-fed meat is almost twice more expensive. So this is an opportunity, potential. Kazakhstan can take advantage. So you should take advantage of this kind of a green market. Branding strategy is critical to take advantage about it. So my recommendation, you should develop branding strategy and price differentiation between carbon-free product and the green product and the regular product. So this is the way you can actually promote green economy in Kazakhstan.
Thank you for your recommendations, Professor.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you for your coming. And we hope for the further cooperation with you.
Okay.
And we will try to do our best to expand our cooperations with South Korean companies.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.